She was chained in the rain, but what this single dad did next changed everything. Welcome to our storytelling channel, where every day brings a new emotional journey. If this story moved you, let us know where you're watching from in the comments. We love hearing from viewers around the world. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon so you won't miss tomorrow's special story. There's always more to feel, more to discover, and more hearts to touch. See you in the next chapter. The rain was relentless, drumming against the windshield like the world itself was crying alongside him. Ben tightened his grip on the steering wheel, his knuckles pale against the cracked leather. His old pickup truck rumbled beneath him, headlights barely cutting through the thick curtain of water that blanketed the rural Kentucky road. Another job interview, another, "We'll let you know." It had become a routine. Disappointment, wrapped in polite words, handed over with a sympathetic smile. His jeans were still damp from sitting in the waiting room. The heater wheezed softly, pushing out air that was more noise than warmth. He exhaled slowly, watching his breath fog up the glass and wiped it with the back of his hand. On the passenger seat, his wallet sat open, empty except for a creased photo of a little girl with a wide grin and messy pigtails. Emily, his daughter, 6 years old, his whole world. He glanced in the rearview mirror. There she was, sound asleep, in her booster seat, clutching her stuffed rabbit close to her chest. Her lips parted slightly, her breaths slow and even. In that fragile silence, a wave of emotion swelled in Ben's chest. Love, guilt, determination. She was the only thing he had left. Since Megan, his wife, passed away 2 years ago, life had felt like a slow unraveling. First the house, then the job, then the savings. But not Emily. He refused to lose her no matter what. The road curved ahead, slick with mud and lined by trees that leaned in as if whispering secrets to one another. Ben turned the wheel gently, careful not to skid. His truck wasn't built for weather like this, but it was all he had. Every mile he drove felt like one more challenge thrown at him by a world that seemed to have stopped caring. And yet he kept going, because giving up wasn't an option, not with her in the back seat. The dashboard lights flickered for a moment, drawing his attention. He tapped it gently like he'd done 100 times before, hoping the flickering was just another harmless quirk of the old machine. Outside, thunder rumbled, low and distant. The wipers squeaked rhythmically, a tired metronome keeping time with his thoughts. He was exhausted, physically, mentally, emotionally. But he couldn't show it. Emily deserved to feel safe, even if he didn't. He reached a hand over and turned up the old country radio station, just loud enough to fill the silence without waking her. A soft melody hummed through the speakers. Ben swallowed hard. He had no plan, no next move, just the worn-out belief that somehow things had to get better. He had to believe that, for her. And so, through the storm, through the fog, through the fear of failing again, Ben kept driving, toward their small rental trailer, toward the next sunrise, toward whatever came next. Because for Emily, he would keep going. Always. The Sioux. Road narrowed as Ben's truck climbed a small ridge, tires crunching through gravel and wet leaves. The rain hadn't let up. It was coming down in thick sheets now, blurring everything beyond a few feet. He squinted through the foggy windshield, eyes darting between the road and the mirror where Emily still slept, her bunny tucked safely under one arm. He was almost home. Just a few more turns down the winding road that led to their tiny trailer. Barely. 500 square feet, patched up siding, and a roof that groaned when the wind hit right. But it was theirs for now. He gripped the wheel tighter, thinking about the empty cupboards, the overdue bills piled up on the kitchen counter, the landlord's final warning. Then something flickered. Out of the corner of his eye, through the blur of rain and headlights, something white flashed between the trees. At first he thought it was a reflection, maybe a bag caught in the wind or a trick of the light, but instinct made his foot slam the brake. The truck skidded slightly, fishtailing in the mud before coming to a stop on the shoulder. Emily stirred, but didn't wake. Ben's heart thudded in his chest. This wasn't fear, it was something else, a gut feeling, He left the engine running and stepped out, rain instantly soaking through his flannel shirt. The cold hit him hard. His boots sank into the wet earth as he crossed the shallow ditch and stepped into the trees. At first, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. There, standing motionless among the pines, was a woman. Her white dress, what was left of it, clung to her body, soaked and torn. Her arms were stretched awkwardly, wrists shackled to a thick oak with a rusted chain. Mud streaked her face. Bare feet, shivering, but what stopped him cold were her eyes, wide, haunted, locked onto his. "Ma'am," he called out, barely louder than the rain. She didn't answer, didn't even flinch, just stared. Ben looked around. No car, no house, no sign of anyone else, just her, abandoned, left like trash in the woods. He stepped closer, hands raised slowly, trying not to scare her. "You okay? What happened to you?" Still nothing. She didn't speak, didn't cry, but her eyes, they screamed. Without another thought, Ben turned back to the truck, grabbed the crowbar he kept behind the seat, and returned. With effort, he pried the rusted chain from the tree. Her knees buckled, and he caught her before she collapsed. She didn't weigh much, maybe 100 pounds soaking wet. He lifted her gently, cradling her like he once carried Emily after she'd fallen asleep, on the couch. As he reached the truck, the door creaked open. Emily sat up, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy?" she mumbled. "It's okay, baby," he said softly, settling the woman onto the seat and covering her with his jacket. "We're gonna help her." Ben didn't know who she was or what had happened, but in that moment, his own pain didn't matter. Because no one deserved to be left like that, not on his watch. Ben drove the rest of the way home with one hand on the wheel and the other gently resting on the trembling figure beside him. The woman, who hadn't said a single word, stared. Ahead, eyes empty yet alert, like an animal too exhausted to run but too scared to rest. Emily, now fully awake, clutched her bunny tighter, watching the stranger with a mix of confusion and quiet curiosity. Their trailer came into view. Small, weathered, barely more than a box with a roof. But tonight, it would have to be a shelter for more than just them. Ben parked, cut the engine, and scooped the woman into his arms. She didn't resist, didn't speak. Her skin was ice cold, and her soaked wedding dress clung to him as he carried her through the front door, past the peeling linoleum and the flickering hallway light. "Daddy, is she okay?" Emily asked from the doorway, her voice small. "I don't know, sweetheart," Ben replied. "But she's safe now." He laid the woman gently on the couch, pulling a threadbare blanket over her. She didn't flinch, didn't even blink. Just stared at the ceiling, lips parted, breath shallow. Ben crouched beside her, his hand resting on the armrest. "Can you tell me your name?" A long pause. Then barely audible. "Rachel." He nodded slowly. "All right, Rachel. You're gonna be okay. You're not alone anymore." That night, Ben didn't sleep. He sat in the kitchen, sipping lukewarm instant coffee, listening to the creaks of the trailer settling and the soft sound of Emily humming to herself in the other room. Every so often, he peeked into the living room. Rachel hadn't moved. Her eyes remained open, staring into nothing. Trauma like that, it sat heavy. He knew that look. He'd seen it in the mirror after Megan died. The next morning, Rachel was sitting upright when he entered the room. Still silent, still wrapped in the blanket, but there was a flicker of awareness in her eyes. Ben offered her a cup of coffee. She took it with both hands, trembling slightly as she brought it to her lips. Days passed. She spoke little, only short answers when necessary. But she moved with intention. She folded laundry, fixed the loose handle on the kitchen drawer, sewed up a rip in Emily's stuffed rabbit without being asked. Emily warmed to her quickly. One morning, Ben found them on the floor with crayons and construction paper, Rachel quietly coloring while Emily giggled and leaned into her side. It was the first time laughter had returned to the house in months, and when it came, it didn't feel strange. It felt like something that had just been waiting to return. The trailer was still falling apart. The heater still kicked off randomly. The fridge still hummed like an old truck. But somehow the air inside felt different, lighter, warmer. Rachel wasn't just surviving, she was healing. And in her quiet, careful way, she was helping them heal too. It was late. The kind of late where everything feels still, like the world's holding its breath. Emily had gone to bed hours ago, her bunny tucked under one arm, her soft breathing drifting from the bedroom like a lullaby. The trailer was dark except for the dull glow of the kitchen light. Ben sat at the small table, sipping from a chipped mug, the tea long gone cold. Across the room, Rachel stood by the window, wrapped in a blanket, her silhouette outlined against the flickering porch light. She hadn't said much all day, nothing unusual, but tonight felt different. He could feel it in the air, heavy. Waiting. Then she spoke, quietly, like her voice had been buried deep and this was the first time it had clawed its way out. I was supposed to be married that day. Ben looked up. His fingers froze around the handle of the mug. Rachel didn't turn. Her eyes stayed on the darkness outside. It was arranged. My family said it was for honor, for tradition. Love wasn't part of the deal. They told me that comes later, after the vows, after the children, after the obedience. Her voice cracked. But I didn't want it. I didn't even know him. She let out a bitter laugh. So I ran. I got as far as the county line before they found me. They didn't yell, they didn't cry, they just chained me. Told me to sit and think about the disgrace I brought to them. Ben stood slowly, unsure if he should come closer. But something in her trembling shoulders pulled him forward. I thought I'd die out there, Rachel whispered. Thought maybe that's what they wanted, that if I disappeared, the shame would disappear with me. She turned finally, her eyes rimmed with tears, hollow with something deeper than sadness. But then you stopped. You didn't know me. You had every reason to keep driving, but you didn't. Ben swallowed hard. He stepped forward, placed his hand gently on her shoulder. You mattered, he said, his voice low. You still, do? I didn't feel like I did. Not for a long time. Her lip trembled. I thought I was broken beyond fixing. He shook his head. You weren't broken. You were left behind by people who couldn't see your worth. That's on them. Not you. Rachel let out a sob, soft at first, then shaking through her whole body. Ben pulled her into a hug, and for a moment, neither of them said anything. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was full of pain, of healing, of something being rebuilt one piece at a time. In that quiet embrace, something shifted. It wasn't about saving or being saved. It wasn't about rescue. It was about recognition. Two broken people, no longer pretending they were whole, but realizing maybe they didn't need to be. Not to be worthy of love. Not to begin again. 1 year later, the trailer still creaked, when the wind blew and the paint still peeled from the porch rail. But it no longer felt like a place people landed when life fell apart. Now it felt like a home. Sunlight streamed through clean windows, catching the dust as it danced in the warm air. In the tiny kitchen, Ben stood at the stove, flipping pancakes with practiced ease. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, and for the first time in a long time, he wasn't just surviving. He was living. His face, once lined with exhaustion, now held a kind of peace, not because life was perfect, but because it was finally real. Across the room, Rachel sat at the table beside Emily, patiently braiding the little girl's hair. Emily giggled as Rachel made silly faces in the mirror they'd stuck to the wall with tape. The stuffed rabbit, now fully patched and clean, sat beside Emily's plate like a permanent guest at breakfast. Mom, you're making it too tight. Emily laughed. Rachel smiled, hands pausing. Okay, looser. But it won't hold during recess. Ben glanced over his shoulder, heart swelling at the word, Mom. Emily had started saying it on her own, months ago. There was no big moment, no ceremony. Just one morning over cereal, she said, Mom, can you pass the milk? And it had never gone away. Rachel had cried in private that day, curled on the porch with her face in her hands. Ben didn't need to say anything. He just sat next to her, hand resting on her knee, and let her feel it all. Life hadn't gotten easier, but it had gotten meaningful. Ben now worked maintenance at the local elementary school. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. He came home every day covered in paint and sawdust, but there was pride in his hands, strength in his steps. Rachel had taken her pain and turned it into purpose. She volunteered at a local women's shelter twice a week, helping others find their way out of the darkness she once knew too well. Her story became more than just scars. It became a lifeline. That evening, after Emily was fast asleep under her galaxy-printed blanket, Ben and Rachel sat on the porch swing, hands entwined, listening to the sound of crickets and the distant rumble of passing trucks on the highway. Fireflies blinked across the yard like little stars that had fallen just for them. They didn't speak much. They didn't have to, because they knew the truth now. Sometimes the broken don't need to be fixed. They need to be held, seen, loved without condition. And when love is given, not out of perfection but out of choice, it becomes something stronger than any rescue. It becomes home. Rachel leaned her head on Ben's shoulder and whispered, "Thank you for stopping that night." Ben smiled softly. "Thank you for letting me. If this story touched your heart the way it touched ours, we'd love to hear from you. Sometimes the quietest moments in life carry the loudest emotions, and maybe you've experienced something similar. Have you ever helped someone in need or been saved by the kindness of a stranger? Do you believe that broken people can help each other heal? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your words might give strength to someone else watching right now. And if you're watching this from somewhere far or near, let us know where you're tuning in from. This channel isn't just about stories, it's about people, connections, and the power of empathy. Every comment, every shared memory builds a community where we remind each other that love, hope, and second chances are still possible. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you, and subscribe so you never miss the next emotional journey. A brand new story will be waiting for you tomorrow, one that just might change the way you see the world. Until then, we're listening, and we're glad you're here.